Well, we're back in my kitchen, Keto Naturopath kitchen, and today I'm making a keto bread pudding. It is nut-free, this one's going to be dairy-free, and it's going to be delicious. We have a Precision PSMF course that it's a 30-day course that we offer, and we have weekly Zoom meetings on Fridays. And somebody from our Zoom meeting said, "Can you make a bread pudding that's keto?" And I thought, yeah, I can do that. So in our Zoom meetings, not everything is just PSMF. People get to ask questions just keto, health related, whatever. So I'm making a bread pudding today. And I'm starting off with a cinnamon bread. Now you can use my PSMF cinnamon bread, which is just egg whites, but today I'm going to add the egg yolks back into it. It'll make it a little richer bread. So we start off with 6 egg whites. And we're making 1 loaf, so it's 27 grams of egg white powder. A half a teaspoon of gelatin. I've been adding gelatin to all of my breads and baked goods recently because it just makes the texture a lot better. And just 1 teaspoon of cinnamon because we're going to be adding cinnamon to the bread pudding. So a teaspoon of cinnamon. And for this, I'm using maple flavored better stevia. You can use vanilla flavor, toffee, any flavor you want. We get this on Wellevate. They have more flavors than anywhere else, and they consistently have them. They also have a monk fruit, better stevia monk fruit liquid, which is just monk fruit, and it has no erythritol in it because I can't tolerate any erythritol. So I did buy one of those monk fruits. I haven't really tried it yet because I like the stevia. So I'm going to whip this to stiff peaks like we do with all of the egg breads. You can see all the air bubbles that have been added through whipping. Now, so far, this is our regular PSMF cinnamon bread that we make all the time and have every night for dessert. But I'm adding the egg yolks to make it a little richer. So these are the 6 egg yolks. I'm just going to mix them up a little. And I separated all my eggs yesterday knowing I was going to do this because what I do with the egg yolks is we put them in a low oven for 20 minutes and we grind it up, and with our coffee grinds and the eggshells we put it in our garden. It's great calcium, great for tomatoes, peppers. So I'm just folding in the egg yolks into the egg whites. Now this would be a great bread for dessert on non-PSMF days if you like the egg yolks added to the bread. And I'm going to bake this the same way as I do the PSMF bread. 325 degree Fahrenheit oven for 30 minutes. Then what I normally do is shut the oven off, leave it in for another 30 minutes, and then take it out. So I have my oven at 325 degrees. I'm just going to pour this into, I like the silicone bread pans. I have 2 kinds. One is this one's the stiffer one. The other one I have is not as stiff, and sometimes the loaves just expand out rather than up. And I like to make sure that I don't like to have air bubbles, so I spread it around evenly. I don't normally do this with a spatula, but given all the comments of you should use a spatula, I'm trying to use a spatula, especially since other people have said that the spoons make a lot of noise. But I have a much better feel with the spoon for some reason. Maybe because that's how I learned to cook, with spoons. Specifically wooden spoons. My mother always cooked with wooden spoons, but that's not sanitary anymore. So I'm going to be putting this into my 325-degree oven for 30 minutes. It's supposed to sit for another 30 minutes. I may not do that because I made a loaf yesterday. So we can continue on now with making it with the loaf that I made yesterday. So I'm putting this in the oven, timing it, and I'll be right back. So the loaf I just made is in the oven. It'll be in there for 30 minutes at 325-degree Fahrenheit. But I made a loaf yesterday, so we didn't have to just sit around and wait for that. I like to refrigerate my bread for a day at least before I use it. Even my PSMF cinnamon breads, the focaccia, everything, hamburger, hot dog buns, I refrigerate them because when they first come out of the oven, they're very flaky. If you refrigerate them for a day, they're nice and soft. So here's the loaf that I made yesterday. And we're going to cut this into 1-inch cubes. And we're going to put it in a baking dish. Now, you can use an 8x8 pan. I like mine in a round pan, so I'm just going to do a round casserole. You know, this is olive oil. You can use avocado oil. You can use bacon grease, whatever. So we're going to cut this up into 1-inch cubes and put it in the casserole. Now, it may not look pretty. I don't really care how my breads look. They taste great. So, and this does have a little different texture than the pure egg white bread. Because of the added egg yolks, it's a little richer. The only downside is you don't have egg yolks left for egg yolk crepes, egg yolk waffles, and I love both of those. Try to make it as even as possible. Now I am making this dairy-free because we are pretty much dairy-free. So I have a can of Thai kitchen coconut milk. And I'm putting it in a blender because sometimes, depending on the weather, there are chunks and lumps and you want to get it all even out. It's really hot in North Carolina today. So I didn't have to put it in the blender. I could have just mixed it up in a bowl. But I'm going to blend it because if you've watched any of my ice cream recipes, you know that whatever's left in here gets blended up for my coffee. So here we have, this is about 1 3/4 cup of coconut milk. If you want to measure that way, you can have like 2 cups. We're also having 4 eggs, 65 grams of xylitol, which is about 1/3 cup. Yes, you can use any sweetener you want. The only granular I can use is xylitol. You need a teaspoon of cinnamon. And we have cinnamon bread there. If you don't like that much cinnamon, cut back on either the bread or this custard. And then we need a 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg. I like to do my own nutmeg. I have my little nutmeg thing and I just add in some nutmeg. And now 1½ teaspoons of vanilla. And yes, my homemade vanilla is almost ready. So as soon as this bottle is empty, I'll be using my own homemade vanilla. It's vanilla beans I have some in vodka, I have some in bourbon. I don't have the exact how much you put in of each. Since this is dairy-free, I have 2 tablespoons of melted bacon grease. You can use butter. I actually bought butter thinking I was going to make this with butter. And then I thought, use bacon grease. Make it totally dairy-free. And we're going to blend this up. And you're going to pour it over the bread cubes. And you want to cover it all, so spread it around. You want to make sure they all get soaked in. And as you can see, there's a little bit left, and that's going to be my coffee. So you want to press the bread cubes down to make sure they're all coated really well. And this needs to sit for 20 to 25 minutes. So all the juice is soaked up into the bread. We'll put this in for 350-degree Fahrenheit oven, and it goes in for 50 to 55 minutes. So I'll be back in 20 to 25 minutes. So it's been 20 to 25 minutes. If you can see, the bread has soaked up most of the liquid. And I'm going to put this in a 350-degree oven for 50 to 55 minutes until it's set, a little bit of jiggly. But I just want to show you, I took the loaf of bread that I made out after 30 minutes because I didn't want to wait for it to be in the oven for another 30 minutes. So I want to show you what it looks like. This is like, yes, it's going to deflate some, and I will put it in the refrigerator for a day at least, but looks pretty good to me. Okay, so I'm putting the bread pudding in the oven, and it's going to be in there for 50 to 55 minutes, and I probably let it sit for like 5 minutes before I cut into it, so I'll see you back in an hour. So the bread pudding was in the oven for about 50 minutes at 350-degree Fahrenheit. So now I'm going to taste it, see how it tastes. I'll take a little bit. How I think this will be perfect is with a scoop of dairy-free vanilla ice cream. I've had some in the freezer, so I thought, oh, perfect. So this is what the bread pudding looks like with a scoop of ice cream. These are my mother's wedding dishes, and they would have been married 76 years this June, which is just in a week or so. And so it's pretty special for me to be able to use her wedding dishes. I'm going to try using them more often, so you'll probably be seeing them more often. But right now, bread pudding with vanilla ice cream, dairy-free, nut-free. Oh, that is good. I'm going to have some more. Very low carb, very few carbs. It's mostly eggs with coconut milk. Again, if you don't want dairy-free, you can use regular milk and butter. But oh, this tastes good with the bacon grease. I'll just say that. So I'm just going to eat this whole thing.